Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Banachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Paramahansa Tata Shri Shri His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki No All glory to Samuel. All glory to Samuel. All glory to Samuel. All glory to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur and Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Bitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhunam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Eshvari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All right, so we are in Canto 3, Chapter 11, Text 22. Is that what's on? Yep. Trilokya Yuga Sahasram. Trilokya Yuga Sahasram. Bahir Abrahmano Dinam. Bahir Abrahmano Dinam. Tavatyeva Nishatat. Tavatyeva Nishatat. Yan Nimi Lati Vishvashrik. Yan Nimi Lati Vishvashrik. Trilokya Yuga Sahasram. Bahir Abrahmano Dinam. Tavatyeva Nishatat. Yanni Lati Vishvadrik. Trilokya Yuga Sahasram. Bahir Abrahmano Dinam. Tavatyeva Nishatat. Yanni Milati Vishvashrik. Trilokya Yuga Sahasram. Bahir Abrahmano Dinam. Tavatyeva Nishatat. Yanni Milati Vishvashrik. Ladies. Trilokya Yuga Sahasram. Bahir Abrahmano Dinam. Tavatyeva Nishatat. Yanni Milati Vishvashrik. Ladies. Trilokya Yuga Sahasram. Bahir Abrahmano Dinam. Tavatyeva Nishatat. Yanni Milati Vishvashrik. Trilokya Yuga Sahasram. Bahir Abrahmano Dinam. Tavatyeva Nishatat. Yanni Milati Vishvashrik. Trilokya of the three worlds. Yuga, the four yugas. Sahasram, 1,000. Bahihi, outside of. Abrahmanaha, up to Brahmaloka. Dinam is a day. Tavati, a similar period. Eva, certainly. Nisha is night. Tata, oh dear one. Yet, because. Nimilati goes to sleep. Vishvashrik, Brahma. So the translation reads, outside of the three planetary systems, Swarga, Martya, and Patala, the four yugas multiplied by 1,000 comprise one day on the planet of Brahma. A similar period comprises a night of Brahma in which the creator of the universe goes to sleep. So I say, and you please repeat, outside of the three planetary systems, Svarga, Martya, and Patala, the four yugas multiplied by 1,000 comprise one day on the planet of Brahma. A similar period comprises a night of Brahma in which the creator of the universe goes to sleep. Okay, so here's the short purport. When Brahma goes to sleep in his nighttime, the three planetary systems below Brahmaloka are all submerged in the water of devastation. In his sleeping condition, Brahma dreams about the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu and takes instruction from the Lord for the rehabilitation of the devastated area of space. So I'm going to, since I've got several verses to read through here till we get to 25, I'll just go through them and I'll just read the Sanskrit and the English. Nishavasana aradho lokakalpo nuvartate yavadinam bhagavato manun munjangs chaturdasha. At the end of Brahma's night, the creation of the three worlds begins again in the daytime of Brahma, and they continue to exist throughout the life duration of 14 consecutive manus, or fathers of mankind. So the purport here, as the end of life of each manu, there are shorter dissolutions also. Swam swam kalam manur bhunkte sadhikam hyeka saptatim. Each and every manu enjoys a life of a little more than 21 sets of 4 millenniums. The duration of life of a manu comprises 71 sets of 4 millennium, as described in the Vishnu Puran. The duration of the life of one manu is about 852,000 years in the calculation of the demigods, or in the calculation of human beings, 306,720,000 years. It's 25 now. Okay. It cuts off the number on my phone, so I can't see what the verse number is. Manvantareshu manavas tadvamsya rishaya suraha bhavanti chaiva ugapat sureshash chanuye chatan. After the dissolution of each and every manu, the next manu comes in order, along with his descendants who rule over the different planets. But the 7 famous sages and demigods like Indra and their followers, such as the Gandharvas, all appear simultaneously with Manu. So here's the purport. There are 14 Manus in one day of Brahma, and each of them has different descendants. Trilokya Yuga Sahasram Bahir Abrahmano Dinam Tavateva Nishatata Yanimi Lati Vishvashrik outside of the three planetary systems, Swarga, Martya, and Patala, the four yugas multiplied by 1,000 comprise one day on the planet of Brahma. A similar period comprises a night of Brahma, in which the creator of the universe goes to sleep. So we're discussing calculation of time from the atom. And we started off with this chapter discussing small units of time. And now we're in the second part of the chapter where we're discussing larger units of time. And these are huge units of time, quite into the thousands and thousands of years. And it's interesting that there appear to be three different time continuums being discussed here. We have the earthly time continuum, which we are aware of directly because we see the seasons go and we see the seasons come. Right now, we are phasing into springtime. All the birdies are chirping and the flowers are coming out, and tulips all down the Skimmerhorn Street on the underneath the trees in those little square places where the concrete is not present. So that's one kind of continuum of time, but it's related to the demigod continuum of time, which we heard about the last few days, which is if you divide human time by 360, you get demigod time. So Kali Yuga, as we learned, exists for 1,200 years of the demigods. But if you multiply 1,200 by 360, you get 4,320,000. So that's the duration of Kali Yuga in Earth years. Now, to get Brahma years, that's another time continuum. You have to multiply by 1,000. So that means that let's start with the unit of one Divya Yuga. A Divya Yuga is a collection of Satya, Trecha, Dwapara, and Kali. We know that Satya Yuga is 4 times the duration of Kali Yuga. Trecha is 3 times the duration of Kali Yuga. Dwapara is 2 times the duration of Kali Yuga, and Kali Yuga is 1 times the duration of Kali Yuga. So when you add 3 plus 2 plus 1 plus 4, you get 10. So the whole shooting match, all 4 yugas put together, are called a Divya Yuga, and they exist for 10 times the duration of Kali Yuga. In other words, 4,320,000 years. Now, since there are 1,000 of those in one day of Brahma, that means that Brahma's one day in our Earth years is equal to 4,320,000,000 years. You shove the whole thing over from, 4,320,000, you move it 3 decimal places over and it becomes 4,320,000,000 years long. So that's Brahma's day. But Brahma has a night too, so it doubles that. So it means that the entire thing, a whole 24-hour day of Brahma, is actually 8,640,000,000 years long. My math coprocessor is starting to smoke at this point. So, at any rate, we can see how this works. Now, what we're finding out is that, in other words, what seems like a day on Brahma's planet, a whole 24-hour day, for us equates to, as we were saying, 8,640,000,000 years. And so it's interesting that the Vedas talk about these huge time durations. We can compare that to the Bible, which says the earth was created in 4004 BC, according to Bishop Ussher. That was a famous line from Inherit the Wind. It was a play about the Scopes monkey trial, where when I was in high school, I played Clarence Darrow, the atheistic lawyer, and my friend played William Jennings Bryan, the theistic, proponent of the Bible, and I remember that line, where, William Jennings Bryan asks, where Clarence Darrow asked William Jennings Bryan, well, when was the earth created, and Bryant answers in 4004 BC, and Clarence Darrow says, well, that's just his opinion. And Jennings Bryan replies, it's not an opinion. It's arrived at by computing the ages of the sages, or the progenitors in the Bible, and he came up with that figure. So that was accepted. I think very few Christians actually accept that these days, but at one time it was kind of the standard, But here in the Vedas, we have these huge time segments, we're talking about billions of years. And we find that a whole day of, now notice that there are two 12-hour segments. There's the day and the night. Ain't nothing happening in the night, Brahma's. So I don't feel so bad about how long I sleep. He sleeps for 12 hours of the day. So Brahma is shut-eye for 12. And here we find out that he dreams of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and Garbhodaksha Vishnu explains to him how to reestablish the planetary systems that have all been burnt to a cinder by Ananta Sesh, So at the end, we'll talk about that later in this chapter. We hear about devastation, that we find out that a fire comes from the mouth of Ananta Sesh, and it singes all the Earth planet and all those middle planetary systems and Patala and everything. And then just water comes and dissolves everything into the water of devastation. So what's retained is Brahmaloka and some of the heavenly planets. Those don't get destroyed, but the rest of the whole thing is destroyed. And then Brahma, when he wakes up, when his alarm clock goes off, after he, takes his shower and brushes his teeth, he begins to create the middle planetary systems and the whole thing all over again. And so Brahma's one day is 14 manus long. So Brahma's one day is chopped up into 14 manus. We are in manu number 7 right now, which is Vaivasvata manu. But the first one was Swayambhuva manu. And so each manu lives for 71 yuga cycles. So that's the whole Divya Yuga of what we were saying before. The Divya Yuga is 10 times the duration of Kali Yuga, which makes it 4,320,000. So 71 of those makes one Manu, and that was the figure that we had just a little bit before. That if you multiply 71 times 14, you get close to 1,000. It's 994 or something like that, So 14 manus, each living 71 yuga cycles, makes 1,000 ages. And then you have Brahma's night where nothing happens, but it's same duration as the day. So in the day, a lot of stuff is going on. All these manus are coming and going. And we have the various yuga cycles revolving, each one of them Satya being 4 times as long, Trecha, Dwapara, and Kali each being shorter. And this thing repeats over and over again. And only in the 7th Manu, the 28th millennium, In Dwapara Yuga does Krishna himself come. He doesn't come in any other epoch at all. He's not there in the first Manu. He's not there in the second Manu. He's not there in the third Manu. He's only there in the seventh Manu. And so that's like halfway through, essentially, since there's 14 of them. And since he comes in the 28th Divya Yuga, so that's when it happens. And he comes at the end of Dwapara Yuga, and we find that Lord Chaitanya comes, as we're going to find out, in the Partana. Now, yesterday, our Pancharatna had a question that he threw out. He didn't like the scientists have some kind of monetary reimbursement for people who answered the question, but nonetheless, it was an interesting and worthy question. So in Adi Lila, in chapter 3 of Adi Lila, verse 29, it describes that there are what they're called is intermediate or buffer yugas in between. It's part of, like Kali Yuga is 4,320,000 years long, and the buffer is included in that. But there are, as it explains there's a Partana and Sesha Sandhya. So Sandhya means joint or conjunction. So we have in the Mangalartik prayer, in the last one, about the spiritual master being worshipped 3 times a day, Tri Sandhya. So it means that there's a conjunction between the first segment, as the yuga is phasing in, is called the Partana. And then at the end, when the yuga is phasing out, it's called the Sesha. So Lord Chaitanya comes during the Sesha, the Partana, the beginning. And that is equivalent to 36,000 years. So we're still in the Sandhya, or the changeover from Dwapara to Kali. So if you take 36,000 and you put it over 432,000, you find that it's 1/12. So the Sandhya is evidently 1/12 the duration of Kali Yuga. Now, it doesn't say in the CC whether each yuga has 1/12 or whether they're all 36,000 years long. So I don't know whether all Sandhyas are the same length or they're a proportional length to the yuga that they are a part of. So there's this, just like when you see we have Mangalartik, it's dark, but soon the sun starts to come up. And so there's a gradual transition. Finally, we get full daylight. And then in the noontime, there's another, it's called another Sandhya. And then in the evening, when, dusk comes about, that's another Sandhya. So another interesting point that comes out here, but only kind of in passing, and we'll meet it again in later in the Bhagavatam, in Canto 8, Chapter 13, we discover that just like the United States president, when he gets elected, he appoints his cabinet. And so when the president goes out, the entire cabinet goes out too. And a new president comes in and they have a new cabinet. And so it's the same thing with the Manus. When a Manu finishes his lifetime, a new batch of 7 sages comes up. A new Indra is there, new principal demigod. So these are all new instantiated. And in the 13th chapter of the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it explains you know. Before that, it explained the previous Manus, you know. The first one was Swayambhuva, then Rochisha, and then it explains all the others and who were holding these various offices during that point. And then it explains at the very beginning the present Manu, Vivasvata Manu, who his descendants are, you know, and we hear this in Bhagavad Gita, Ikshvaku, et cetera, we hear about this particular Manvantar, Vivasvata Manu. And then we hear that Indra is, I forget what, there's a specific name for Indra. Indra is a post, like being president or being chief financial officer or something like that. So Indra is a post, but there's a specific name for the person who's inhabiting the post of Indra at this present moment. I've forgotten what that name was. But we are going to find out that the next Manu, it will have Bali Maharaj as Indra. So we find out in the whole thing of, you know, Bali Maharaj, when we have that pastime with Vamanadev, and Vamanadev puts his feet on Bali Maharaj's head and installs him in Patala Loka in a very opulent setting. So he's living in a very opulent place. And when the Manu comes to an end, and as we heard today, when a Manvantara ends his term, there is sometimes a small devastation that occurs then. And then the next Manu takes over. And when the next Manu takes over, then that next Manu will be Bali Maharaj. I mean, not the Manu, but the next Indra will be Bali Maharaj. He will be that Manu. And it describes who the seven sages will be. Vyasadev's one of them, and they'll be different from the seven sages that exist now. So I don't know whether the other seven sages that exist now die or whether they just are no longer the seven sages. There's a new group of them. They just become, the previous seven sages or something like that. But at any rate, that's kind of an overview of how this whole thing works. And I wanted to briefly talk about why there are yugas anyways. You know, it might seem kind of strange, you know, that we describe that things start out way up here, you know, at Satya Yuga, whereas, you know, Pancharatna was mentioning yesterday, all four principles of religion are intact. You know, we have austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, right? Austerity, mercy, cleanliness, and truthfulness. But in Treta Yuga, already one of them is missing. And in Dwapara, two of them are missing. In Kali Yuga, there's only one, and it's shaky, and that's truthfulness. So there's only one. So why does it degrade down like that? Well, one of the things that I would say that's important to kind of understand is that material universe is designed to give people their free will. The Supreme Lord is not forcing anybody into a relationship with him. So if the Supreme Lord is not forcing anyone into a relationship, then there has to be the ability to not have a relationship with the Supreme Lord. So in Satya Yuga, as Pancharatna mentioned yesterday, there's not even agriculture because everybody's living in such a sattvic way that the earth just produces whatever they need to eat. They don't need to do something to grow food. It's already growing, you know. Another thing that's interesting is in Satya Yuga, there's no law and order. There's no government either. You know, that only happens in Treta Yuga, where things degrade and things get so bad that the living entities in Treta Yuga go to Brahma and say, please do something, you know. And so Brahma thinks about it for a while, what to do, because people, humans try to solve their problem on their own, you know, by creating rules, and those don't seem to work. And so they ask Brahma, and Brahma then says, well, I will give you Dandaniti, which is the rule of the stick. Danda is stick, and Niti is the rule. So Brahma gives humans that, but that still doesn't seem to get the job done. So eventually, Manu is asked to rule over humans, and that's where the Manu comes in. Manus are those who write the codes and laws and implement the codes and laws for humans. So that's kind of what's going on, and that starts in Treta Yuga. So the idea is that if there is such a thing as free will, then it means that people have to be allowed to do whatever they want, even if it's drastically opposed to morality, drastically opposed to the desire of the Supreme Lord, even if they really want to push the Supreme Lord way into the background. So it has to be possible. Now, it's like a sieve, that those in Treta Yuga or Satya Yuga, they have pretty good karma. They're fairly pious. Now, as was kind of brought up yesterday, the problem is that Satya Yuga is nice enough that there's not a lot of impetus to get out of the material world altogether. You just kind of want to stay there and do your puja and eat the fruits from trees, no big thing, no terrible weather, none of that kind of stuff, so you can just kind of home out, and be cool with the way things are in Satya Yuga. Of course, in Treta Yuga, already things are starting to go off kilter. And so you have to have government, you have to have agriculture in Treta Yuga. And at that point, then people have, but still there's a lot of motive goodness, And finally in Kali Yuga, that's when things are really down and dirty, in Kali Yuga. It's the time when all those people who really, really, really didn't want to have anything to do with the Supreme Lord, they get their chance to come out and party. That's what Kali Yuga is all about, that this is when everybody who really didn't want to pay attention to the Supreme Lord, we get our chance to come out and do the thing. And of course, things get brown and ugly fast. If you read about in the 11th canto, what things get like, in Kali Yuga. Of course, it's not going to happen during the golden age of Lord Chaitanya. So during this time, Kali Yuga is aborted or pushed backwards. And so during the golden age of Lord Chaitanya, it will be like a Prema Yuga or a Satya Yuga, even better, as Lord Chaitanya's mercy takes hold, as people in general start to chant the holy name, and that becomes a very important thing. So that'll be for the next 9,500 years. We've gone through about 500 years or so of it. And then after that, when Lord Chaitanya's golden era or golden age comes to an end, then boop, it's like the alarm bell goes off. Kali Yuga comes in like a flood. Religious systems become bankrupt very quickly. Social order goes down the tubes. And rulers become like thieves and dacoits, and it's not any fun. It's like something out of those Mad Max, movies or something like that. People scraping by, shooting each other and trying to, control what they can. And of course, things get pretty bad. But if you read the Kalki Purana, you get a kind of a sense of what happens at the end of Kali Yuga, where Vishnu, Yasha, and his wife give birth to Kalki in the city of Shambhala. And then Kalki grows and he marries a beautiful lady from an island in the middle of the ocean. And then he begins to attack Kali, because Kali's time is over now. it's time for the next Satya Yuga. So there's a war, and people that help Kalki Avatar are Satya Yuga appears, and various other incarnated entities appear, and they fight this huge battle against Kali personified. And eventually Kali loses, and he's pushed out. And then all those remaining become able to take part in Satya Yuga. Of course, so there's probably another Sandhya of some kind or another. How that works exactly is not explained in the Kalki Puran. But this is kind of the whole, time frame, how it kind of works and plays out. So there are a lot of other things I wanted to say, but there's no time for them. So I'll ask you if there are any questions. Do we have our little pass around mic?
Just a quick question regarding creation. You say that Brahma, after he goes to bed, when he wakes up, I'm just wondering the description in the Srimad Bhagavatam of how Brahma's creation happens. Like from his mind, this is created, from his body, left, right, all these things happen. Is this like an every morning ritual for him?
Yeah, it actually is. It's not the first time, in the very first day of Brahma, he has to create a lot more. So because some of it doesn't get destroyed, right. But probably, roughly speaking, something like 80 or 70% or something like that, because the heavenly planets are still going to be there. They don't get destroyed, but mostly things do get destroyed. And so it's an every morning ritual that he has to get up and recreate the universal planetary systems and, arrange for population to be sprinkled out throughout the newly reconstituted planets. So this is what we mean by unmanifested. I used to misunderstand what the word unmanifested meant. It doesn't mean it didn't exist. It just means it's invisible. But it also can mean that it's merged into particles. Now, we've been discussing the atom. And the atom is a Vedic concept, though I'm reading just recently in 6 Systems of Philosophy about Vaisheshika philosophy, which is atomic theory in the Sanskrit version. That the atomic theory of Vaisheshika philosophy, or Kanada, who was a sage who propounded Vaisheshika philosophy, is different from the Greek version, and certainly different from the modern scientific version. That the whole understanding of atom in the Vedic system is something that can't be broken down any further. In the modern scientific use of the word atom, certainly can be broken down into smaller sub parts. So anyway, this is the idea that sometimes things can be forms can be assembled, and sometimes they can be disassembled into, basic building blocks like tiny Legos or something like that. Everything is all kind of just dissolved.
And just one more question. You're mentioning how the posts of Indra is more like a post than a name. Is this reference in the Bhagavatam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you read the 8th canto in chapter 13, it explains who the next Indra is. As we said, that Bali Maharaj will take the post of Indra. Okay. This was, Bali was trying to conquer Indra, and we find that out in, what canto was that? The 7th canto or something like that? Did it say 8th canto? Yeah. So there's the fight between Bali and Indra, but the Supreme Lord settled it. as Vamanadev by giving Indra his throne back. But at the same time, Indra knows that the next Indra is going to be Bali Maharaj, so Bali Maharaj he's got his dibs on the next time that Indra comes around.
So I wanted to ask how this happens. Like, does Bali Maharaj, does he change the body into a demigod? Like, is it that personality who was in the body of Bali Maharaj becomes born in a demigod family and becomes next Indra? Or he just takes that post in the present body of an Asura? How does that work?
Yeah, he just kind of like the same way that our government works. That the outgoing president, I don't know if he has to die or anything like that. I haven't read that, but he's no longer Indra anymore. So I've forgotten what the name of the current Indra is. The personal name was it? Yeah, I think that's right. It starts with a P, but I couldn't remember. Purandara. So the current Indra is named Purandara, but the next Indra will be Bali. So, and just like we have the Association of Past U.S. Presidents, so the same way, I think they have something like past Indras, ones that were Indras in the past. And as we read today, there is a kind of a smaller devastation at the end of each Manvantar. But so I don't know how thorough that is. It's obviously not a full devastation like happens at the end of Brahma's day, or the max devastation which happens at the end of Brahma's life. That's when the whole thing goes down the tubes at that point, gets sucked back into Mahavishnu.
So he takes the post in a present body of Asura as a Bali Maharaja, right?
That he does what?
He takes the post of Indra in the body of the Asura as Bali Maharaja is.
Right.
And does that mean that some things are changing for the whole universe? Like the new government comes, like other...
Well,
like we know that the next Vyasadeva also is Ashwatthama. So we see the personalities who were doing some questionable things coming to big posts in the next Manvantara. So what does that mean for the whole galaxy? How does things change in regards with this new rule?
Bali Maharaj is understood to be the king of the demons, but his character is not at all demoniac, because as we see, he surrendered everything to Vishnu when Vamanadev came, and his spiritual master Sukracharya told him not to. He told him it was a mistake, but Bali Maharaj ignored his spiritual master because he knew that his spiritual master was telling him not to serve God. So Bali Maharaj was more intelligent than his spiritual master, and he accepted the condition to give Bali Maharaj whatever he wanted. And of course, Bali Maharaj took everything away. Not only that, but he did it with 2 steps, and he had 1 left. So he then tied up Bali Maharaj after taking everything away from him. He had just won the universe, and so here it was being reversed. But Bali Maharaj was very, very humble, and so the Supreme Lord understood his good qualities, and so he will be the next Brahma. Now, more than that, I don't know, because we know that sometimes, not next Brahma, but the next Indra, next Indra. So our present Indra has also a kind of checkered and variegated, report card. So, we don't know. It's a difficult post to hold down. God forbid I would be Indra. I know I would wreck the universe.
So in the question is, when the personalities change like that and they accept this post, so do they influence how things are going on in the universe? It's like a dynamic thing also, right?
Yeah, I think they definitely do have an effect on the way things run, just like any administration does. There's you know, like everything, there's some limitations and some borders there. They can only do so much, but at the same time, they do have an effect on the way things play out, because demigods are, after all, managers of the universe, you know, so the universe gets managed by them. And they have, you know, we noticed that when Hiranyakashipu, he forced out all the demigods. He ran the whole thing by himself. You know, he didn't even need them. And of course, but he had his own ideas. He was going to make it so that when people did bad things, they would go to heaven, and when they did good things, they would go to hell. I mean, he had a very different kind of set of rules.
He was a reformer.
Yeah, he was a reformer, big time reformer, you know. But we see what happened to him with Nrsingadev, you know. So you know, there's some limitations there, you know. But and there are times when not just Hiranyakashipu, but other demons are able to take over the post of Indra and the post of the, you know, because in the heavenly planets, that's where you have to be to manage the universe. The universe is managed partly by certain energies and mechanical things, and is managed partly by mantras. It's managed partly by the tejas, or specific powers of the demigods, and it's managed partly by being where the demigods are in the heavenly planets, because there's no controls down there in the Patala Loka, where it's said it's even more opulent than the heavenly planets, but there's no control of the universe down there. And that's why the demons want to go to the heavenly planets, not because where they are already isn't more opulent, but because the controls of the universe are there, and that's what they want, you know. So that's what they were doing when Krishna came. You know, they were infiltrating the earth, because the earth is like this unfortunate buffer state between the heavenly planets and the demoniac subterranean heavenly planets. So the earth is like, you know, one of those islands in the South Pacific in World War II or something like that. So the demons infiltrated the earth, and that was what, you know, we had with Kamsa and others, you know, these demons that Krishna killed as a little boy, you know, Putana, you know, Bakasura, Agasura, etc. These were all demons that had come from the Patala Lokas to the earth to stage a takeover of the heavenly planets. That's why the heavenly demigods were so upset by it, because they knew what was going on, just like the US knows when, you know, some foreign country is starting to build military bases in some place closer to them. You know, they know something's up, you know. So it was the same exact thing. And so the demigods prayed, and Krishna said, all right, I'll come and clean it up. And that's what Krishna's came for, you know, yada yadahi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. So when Krishna came, he kicked butt and got rid of the demons, you know, he emptied them out. And the ones that he decided that were still left, you know, he did a wholesale thing with the Battle of Kurukshetra, got rid of a whole bunch of them there all at one time. And so kind of cleaned the place up, you know, but they came back. So here we are now, you know. So.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for such a universal audit. I'd like to know, is there any mention of Brahma's consort, since he's self-born? I never hear of.
About what?
His wife.
Brahma's wife.
Brahma. What's her service?
Yeah, Brahma has a wife, Sarasvati, I believe, if I remember correctly. But I don't think he ever creates through the usual process with his wife. He just has a wife, you know, and that's Sarasvati. And you were talking about Brahma, right? Brahma. Indra certainly does, but Brahma also has a wife. And I believe I've only heard of one wife from Brahma, but I'm shooting from memory now, so I might be a little bit off there. Yeah, Kavi Chandra. Oh, really? Okay. Oh, really? Okay, right. I remember that story now. Right, right. So Brahma has two wives, or
Created first the mental sons, and
right,
somehow they created, and they created the Prajapatis, and
right, right,
he didn't bother with it after that. And then-
right. He just got the ball rolling in the very
Yeah.
beginning. You know, he created the
They had to do
mind-born
that,
sons.
right. But even they didn't do like
Right. They didn't do much.
we-
Really, it was our. Got to hand it to him. Our
because they could have 10,000 kids at a time. and so-
right, right. They could have as many as they wanted, right? Because they're doing it in a mystical way. It's not the usual process. Well, we know Daksha was the one that really was up to the task. You know, he had the Haryashvas and the Shavalashvas, and that didn't work. So then he had the his daughters, and the daughters were many of them given to Kasyap, and from Kasyap came all these various daughters that each gave birth to different species. Like Vinata gave birth to Garuda and to Aruna. And we have Aditi giving birth to some demigods, and Diti giving birth to the demons. And we have, one of Kashyap's wives gives birth to the plants, one gives birth to the insects, one gives birth to the cloven-hooved animals, and so forth. So there's all this going on. That's in fourth canto, I think we run on into that. So, at any rate. Any final quick questions? If not, we'll cap it off here. Oh, yeah.
I guess just briefly, I'm just wondering about this golden age, the golden age,
Golden age, right?
and has it started, and what are the characteristics? I don't know. It's just kind of like some vague thing for me that gets
Right.
thrown out and thrown. Yeah. I don't really
Well,
know.
it's mentioned, I think, in CC that there will be a 10,000-year golden age started by the advent of Lord Chaitanya. So the golden age means that it's described that Kali Yuga is as an ocean of faults. There's a lot of wrong things in Kali Yuga. However, the golden age is like it's described sometimes in a river. The main current will be flowing one way, but there'll be an eddy current that's flowing the opposite way. And so in this 10,000-year period, there will be a reversal of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga will be eventually completely abrogated, that Kali Yuga will seem almost like a Prema Yuga, because people will take to the chanting of the holy name. And Prabhupada said it doesn't even take a majority to make that happen, that even if a small percentage of the human world or human race starts or takes to the process of chanting, the whole earth will become like even better than Satya Yuga. How soon that'll manifest depends on us. How serious we are to push forward Krishna consciousness.
So it's at some. It's not that it. Did it start with Lord Chaitanya, or it's just at some point?
I believe it started with Lord Chaitanya. Our Ram Roy said something about this the other day. I remember it, but I don't remember what he said.
Yeah, I've seen things from Purana. It starts at the 500th anniversary of Lord Chaitanya.
Oh, with the 500th
So
anniversary.
it's
So
just
it's just
started in
now started.
1986. So and you can see so many, but something's happening before.
Right.
But you know, even right after La Chaitanya, everything got more crazy, and then there's a revival. But now with Prabhupada and the worldwide movement, you know, where people actually from all over the world are chanting, not just in India, and
Right.
there's vegetarian movements and ecological. So many things are symptoms, in my view, anyway, of the golden age. And Kali is, that's stated in a few scriptures, and you know, he's in a lot of anxiety about it, so he's really pushing heavy. So we also saw like gambling all of a sudden everywhere. I mean, you know, right? It was only in Nevada, and then all of a sudden, everywhere you look, there's casinos, and you know, riverboat casinos and Indian reservation casinos and online casinos, and you know, that Kali is really working out the fear of the Sankirtan movement. And Prabhupada just said, we should think, you know, the problem is we haven't preached enough. That's why things are so crazy. You know,
Probably haven't preaching.
we haven't preached enough.
Right.
That's why this Kali is able to still go on. We got to rev it up.
Well, that's the best way to approach
The
any.
demons don't rest, you know. These big demons, they sleep a couple hours and they're just constantly planning and scheming, and they appear so charming and nice, and they use the media. They have complete control of the media. But we have our little Harinam parties, and that's the real weapon, but they don't know. They won't try to stop that, you know. Because it looks like, yeah, that's good. Those people just, you know, they're not.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you think about how much sinful activity is going on in the world, the fact that, you know, we're not in an atomic war with a drought and fallout and everybody's died off means that Krishna's holding back for some reason, you know. So he's waiting for us to get off the ground in a substantial way. All right. So at any rate, we will end. Arjun Nanda has we'll take one last question, but we're starting to, I'm starting to compete with prasadam, which is always a losing battle. How much destruction happens in which pralaya? I've only seen kind of a vague explanation of it, but I know that in this chapter we'll be talking about the pralayas to some extent. It's either this chapter or the next chapter. So we'll touch it then, and I'll see if I can find some more information. But all I know is that I've seen it described a couple places, only in sort of a very summary description, that there is first a fire which burns all the planetary systems, and then after that there is rain that dissolves into the waters of devastation, the various forms. So it's kind of like everybody gets blotted out. All the living entities have to merge into Garbha Vishnu until, you know, Brahma wakes up again, and then they have to wait for their appropriate time in karma. Okay, so thank you all very much. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
So it's Chandrashekar Maharaj ki.
These personalities change, and then the other things change also.
Yeah. I didn't realize that for a long time either.
It's just like with the The only difference is that they're not voted in; they're being assigned.
Right, right. They're not voted in.
Brahma, right? Or by Vishnu.
Well,
Who's taking the decision?
I think to some extent, both Brahma and Vishnu. I mean, Krishna has his plan, and he hears it from Brahma, but
But the assignment is given by Brahma, like you're gonna be.
well, I think it's well, I don't. To be honest, I don't know how that works. Whether it's decided by Brahma or there's something that else that decides it. You know, I don't really understand how that works. I've never seen it described anywhere, so I hesitate to.
Like this example, like it's a pretty dramatic governance.
Right, right.
Like the person who was trying to conquer, then like, okay, you're gonna be the next.
You're going to be the next one, right?
What?
Right, right. He'll be the next one, but that's some million years away.
But for them, it's like stuff.
Yeah, I know. For them, it's like next Thursday.
It's interesting.